Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
Listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
I love being a rocker. I love it.
Painful. Joe Giammatteo.
Bartlett, I can't deny your dorkish attitude.
It's telling you guys both went with the same thing here. I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett. We're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw at a time. But first, a special shout out to our new listener in Austria, and also that person in North Carolina that's been binging our back catalog. Blink twice if you're under duress.
That poor soul.
On tax day.
In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on April 15th, 1996. This Raw was recorded at the Orange Pavilion in San Bernardino, California, and features Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get into it. Since he lost to Shawn Michaels in the Iron Man match, Bret Hart's silence has been deafening. And we're like a week removed from that match at this point, right? 2 weeks removed from that match. So.
Yeah, at most. Yeah.
I tell you who's been quiet a hell of a lot longer, and that's Razor Ramon. But we might hear about him later. But I don't know why this silence has been so deafening. But just in case our interest wasn't piqued enough as it is, we get a very clickbait feeling clip of Bret Hart shouting at the cameraman to get out of the locker room. And then we find out that we will be getting never-before-seen footage of Bret after that match. Bret's in Germany, and he has things to say, including feelings of betrayal. We will see more of that later on tonight, though. Welcome, everyone, to our first match of the night. Mark Marrow defeats Leif Cassidy with Marty Jannetty, and Mark Marrow was indeed with Sable, by pinfall in 6 minutes and 46 seconds.
One thing I just wanted to add right before the match here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but in the intro, they've already added Foley's diving elbow off the apron onto Undertaker into the intro.
Oh,
so
no.
I was really pumped to see that.
I didn't
notice
that.
it.
Good catch.
That's great.
Back in the match here, I don't even know. The first word out of my mouth was almost going to be Jannetty. And following that nice little bit of news that you gave us there, Ryan, I'm not even sure I can continue. I don't want to bring us down, but here we are.
You got to do it.
I feel bad. Jannetty is there in the ring because this is a Leif Cassidy match. Jannetty's here to get Leif over. I can't see anything wrong with that fucking strategy. And then, wouldn't you know it, Sable comes out of the curtains, followed by Mark Marrow trailing at her heels. We get a split screen giving us the full story of Sable while Marrow and Sable climb into the ring, Marrow doing his best to get the crowd engaged while Sable just kind of struts and poses for a minute. It was very clear she doesn't really know what she's doing here, where the camera is, how to have a presence in the ring. It's all still very new to Sable, and it's quite obvious. Then the bell rings and the match begins. This is immediately not that great, as Leif Cassidy is still embracing the goofball gimmick, gesturing at Marrow and trying to make it clear he's just a happy guy here to wrestle. And when they actually do tie up, again, not all that great. Once the dust settles from that tie-up, we get a clear view of Sable there pacing around the ring, and my enthusiasm really started taking hits here. The second tie-up was really slow and awkward. I'm not really sure who to blame this on, but the ring action was just not working out well. Marrow and Leif go through a series of arm drags, and every single one gets telegraphed. Sable starts doing Watusi gestures at Mark Marrow for some goddamn reason. For those of you that don't know, they're the old 60s dance moves where you make like a V with your finger and then like move it over your eyes. Not sure what the Watusi has to do with Mark Marrow here. By the point Leif Cassidy stuck his tongue out at Mark Marrow, I was completely tuned out of this, and it's a fucking miracle that I have any more notes at all. Leif does the Cabbage Patch. That's right, folks, the Cabbage Patch, causing Vince to comment again on the dorkish, goofy behavior. My favorite part of this match, if there could be said to be one, was probably where Jerry Lawler on commentary says, "I told you she'd bring Mark Marrow bad luck," in reference to Sable. Very telling.
Just you wait, Jerry.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be great luck for her.
Probably my single favorite line from commentary thus far, with close runner-up being Mr. Perfect talking about the baby oil.
Well, I can't wait because I have a favorite commentary line during this match as well.
Oh, nice. There were a lot of high spots after that, a lot of sizzle but no steak, as JR would say. Finally, Marrow does that same leaping roll-up from the top rope to get the pin and the 3 counts, and the cameraman makes sure to get every upward angle on Sable's rack that he possibly can as she and Marrow make their exit. Ryan, I felt like this match was about 5 minutes longer than it should have been. What did you think of it?
How long was it?
It was 6 minutes and 46 seconds.
Maybe 6 minutes too long. The first thing I thought of when I saw Leif Cassidy down there in another singles match was, have we even seen the New Rockers wrestle as a tag team yet on Raw?
Nope.
This is the second time we've seen Leif in a singles match, but we have not yet once seen the New Rockers wrestle as a team. The other thing that I noticed was immediately when Sable and Mark Marrow were making their way down to the ring, Sable has on the iconic black tight vinyl outfit. This is something that, I think everyone out there is going to remember Sable wearing quite a bit during her tenure here in the WWF. I mean, I guess there's also a match here with Mark Marrow. I don't know, who cares, right? Sable. The last time we had a singles match with Cassidy, it was with Shawn Michaels, and it seems this is indeed Leif Cassidy's gimmick. He's a simpleton. I mean, I don't know what other way to put it. He just sits there and he acts like a moron, cheering and smiling and giggling, and it's really quite dumb of a gimmick. Then they start exchanging blows, but nothing here really looks all that great. Thankfully, we don't get any of the glaring botches that we got before out of Leif Cassidy, but it still doesn't look all that great. Another thing that really confused me was, again, Jannetty takes a cheap shot on Leif Cassidy's opponent. And we were thinking last time that maybe this was just some lazy storytelling and making him act this way to get Shawn Michaels over. But now this is 2 times in a row. So I don't know. Are the New Rockers a heel tag team, it appears? Because they're always cheating. And then we get to what I would say was my favorite commentary line, which is Vince says that Sable is probably the classiest lady they've ever had here on Raw.
Oh, come on. What about Luna?
Towards the end of the match, Mark, he lands a move that the King refers to as a carousel head scissors. I don't know what to say other than everything about this I thought was stupid. I mean, first, there was kind of a mess up where Leif had Mark in a full Nelson and he tries to reverse into this head scissors. It doesn't go well, so we go back to the full Nelson. Then Mark does the head scissors again. And the way this worked was he used his hands like in a handstand motion and he moved around in a circle to throw Cassidy to the floor using his legs wrapped around Leif Cassidy's head. But that means we're supposed to believe that him running on his arms are fast enough to overtake another man's legs. I'm sorry, but it's just not a believable move, and I thought it was really dumb. After that, Mark lands a couple decent-looking high-risk maneuvers and then gets the win, but I don't know, I thought this was another miss for Mark Marrow in his second match here.
I will start with talking about Sable. When we saw Sable a couple weeks ago appear for the first time on WrestleMania, after seeing that, I promised to remain objective when talking about Sable and seeing her. I think this is the best version of Sable, even though she's still sort of trying to find her way around the WWF and how she can get over, which she eventually did. But right here, just as a valet, she's not talking. She looks great.
That's the main thing, not talking.
Yeah, not talking, looks good. Really makes for a great valet. But we'll see what happens later. I still think we're quite a few months away from her becoming a huge star. But this, to me, is the best version of her. So I will enjoy it while it lasts. Leif Cassidy, man, if there is something that has disappointed me the most through 1996, once again, I have to say it's Al Snow.
Oh, man.
This always happy and goofing around gimmick is fucking horrible.
Now we know why he was leader of the Job Squad, right?
I remember the New Rockers existing, but I don't remember any of it. And holy shit, am I glad I don't remember it, because just watching it now it's really painful. It's actually a slap in the face to all wrestling fans, because the Rockers were fucking awesome. You know, Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty in the late 80s, they were on fire. They were great. And then they do this. Just calling them the New Rockers is insulting to wrestling fans. Mark Marrow, I think, I don't know, a lot of his move set would probably translate well into today's modern wrestling, I think, because it seems like he tries to not do gymnastics, but you can tell it's very choreographed. And it reminds me a lot of today's modern wrestling. So it's just it doesn't seem to fit well in 1996 in the WWF, so it's unfortunate, but he'll be around for a little bit here, so we'll see if it improves once he gets settled into the wild man gimmick a little bit more.
You know, you guys keep using this phrase tag team. What is a tag team exactly? I've never seen one of those.
Well, I mean, I've heard stories about them. Apparently, it's when two people are on the same team.
Oh, so Leif and Marty here, but Marty's in the ring wrestling too.
Well, they tag. That's the idea of the tag team, is they tag in their other opponent. Apparently, that's what the fable says.
Joe, can I someday please see a tag team? Will we be allowed?
It won't be tonight, because you're going to see Bart Gunn by himself too.
Oh my God. It's hell. I like tag teams. I can't stand this shit though right now. Well, I guess if this is how Leif Cassidy is going to perform in the ring, maybe it's better that we're not seeing at least this tag team. Ugh, woof. Moving along. Jerry Lawler has Big Daddy Cool Diesel on the phone from Germany. God damn it. Well, let's revisit the attack on poor Shawn Michaels by Diesel yet again. And then Shawn calling Diesel out at the end of Raw last week. And then you called for the belt! That's Vince roaring about Diesel's actions. Vince just rehashed everything here. Annoying as hell, making all of the typical comments to spell out for us what he wants us to think about it. Thanks, Diesel, for all the info, but there's more to come tonight. We get a clip of Bret Hart saying that he doesn't want to go home bitter. And my immediate thought was, well, how the hell would anyone know the difference? And then some clips of Sunny doing her thing. We'll get some words from her later. But before we move along, just real briefly, Ryan, did you have anything on this aside with Diesel or the other tidbits in this section?
Not a whole lot here. I mean, it was a lot of just quick shots of things to come outside of the phone call with Diesel, which was just recapping stuff we've seen recently. About the only new piece of information that we got that at least I thought was new was that we found out the match between Diesel and Shawn Michaels at the next In Your House is going to be a no-holds-barred match. So that's something we learned.
Yeah, I have that written down too, the no holds barred, and which just basically means maybe they're going to do some crazy shit on the outside of the ring, because no holds barred is one of those gimmicks that I dislike. You know, Bartlett, you've mentioned gimmicks you don't like Steel Cage, and Ryan, you don't like the Royal Rumble. No holds barred. What holds are barred in wrestling?
I mean, actually, there are some, right? Like a closed fist punch isn't allowed.
I suppose, yeah.
That's not a hold, though.
Well,
Yeah.
Right, but I would imagine that means you can close fist punch in a no holds barred match, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I prefer no disqualification over no holds barred.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I wonder if maybe that term was somewhat of a like leftover from old school wrestling. Because if you think about collegiate wrestling, there are holds that are barred. Like you can't do a full Nelson. You could only put in a half Nelson. You can't do a chicken wing is an illegal wrestling move, you know. So I don't know if maybe it's a holdover from that.
I'm sure the term has a history that makes sense, but to me, it's just one of those things in sports entertainment, WWF, WWE, whatever you want to call it. It's never made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I always thought that calling the exact same type of match a no DQ match just, I don't know, felt more right. I definitely see what you're saying, though.
But it does bring up some great memories of Hulk Hogan and Zeus wrestling in a
Sure
movie.
does.
Well, after that segment, we will cut to commercial and come back to our next match. Stone Cold Steve Austin defeats Bart Gunn by submission in 8 minutes and 49 seconds. Apparently, this past weekend on Superstars, Steve Austin lost to the Caribbean Kid, who was really Savio Vega all along.
Did either of you also laugh your ass off when you saw that? Like I
Yes.
did? Like
I was just confused.
Like you couldn't tell that was Savio Vega.
Right,
He just had
it looked
like
exactly
yeah.
like him.
yeah.
I mean, he had on, you could tell by his arms, his chest,
Yeah.
and got everything.
And
It
they
was
called
like,
him the Caribbean Kid. Like
Yeah. Yeah. I see what you're saying now, but at the time of watching this, I was just like, what the hell does this have to do? And then they busted out that it was Savio Vega, and I like,
Yeah,
no
it was
shit.
quick.
But, like,
Yeah.
why does it matter that he had to put a mask? Like, why did he have to put a mask? I don't know.
well, because Stone Cold was refusing a rematch against Savio Vega. That's why he had to put the mask on.
Okay. Must have missed that part because this was just very confusing to me in general. What kind of added to that was that the first thing that I noticed is that Bart Gunn no longer has a mullet.
Yeah.
He's got an actual legit haircut now, and the action gets going. These first sequences in the match were a little bit loose, but they were also fast and looked great. Steve and Bart trade locks and holds. You could tell there were touches of miscommunication here and there, but they very quickly worked through them and kept the pace up. The dueling whips to the corner, followed up by a clothesline from Austin, was a great spot. And I realized at this point that I hadn't been taking many notes on this. This match was absolutely absorbing to me. This was the exact polar opposite of our show opener. I actually cared and wanted to watch this match. Even the points where we sat in holds for everyone to catch their breath was entertaining. We cut to commercial just as Austin is dropping Bart on the barrier at the outside, and come back to Austin relentlessly beating on Bart Gunn, frustrated that Bart kicks out on every pin attempt. Then when Bart gets his rally going, Austin works really well for him. Austin contributed to this, even though this was about getting Austin over. We can't say that he wasn't a gracious subject to be beaten on there for a while. Taking control of the match again, Austin's kicks to Bart's ribs and back, they all looked great. They looked stiff and therefore fantastic. These two traded pinfalls back and forth, and then in a really weird spot, we get a Stone Cold Stunner. But it was not called that. This was as a reversal of a sleeper hold that Gunn had on Austin. That drops Gunn, and Gunn isn't the same after that. He's muddled as Austin locks on the $1 Million Dream submission hold. Bart drops his arm 3 times, and Stone Cold gets the victory. Once again, we get a great match out of Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Bart Gunn was no slouch either here. Joe, what did you think of this match?
This was probably not a 5-star match or match of the year, but holy shit, what a match. I loved it.
Yeah, agreed.
Bart Gunn is not enhancement talent, but this match really helped enhance the Stone Cold gimmick. it really reminded me of the matches that Stone Cold would have later in his career. It was just much shorter and faster paced. Austin is just so fundamentally sound as a wrestler. It's no wonder that he went on to he eventually has a great program with Bret Hart in less than a year from now. So it's no surprise because he's just so fundamentally sound. And Bart Gunn in this match isn't too bad either. The only negative I can come up with is you could really tell that both guys were kind of out of gas towards the end. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing to not like about this. Unfortunately, they were doing stuff to try to fire up this crowd, but the crowd just didn't give a shit about this match, which I thought was weird. I guess they're not invested in these two wrestlers enough. And with Austin, he's still using the shitty ringmaster music and the $1 million belt. So we're still far away from really seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin, but this was a nice little taste of it here. And yeah, I was gushing over Hunter Hearst Helmsley last week, and this week I'm gushing over Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I couldn't agree more. This was a really exciting match to watch. It starts off, we still have Stone Cold coming out with the $1 Million Man, and we still have him coming out to this slow violin sounding music with the $1 million money symbol with the green lights in the middle of the ring. So we're still waiting for that full transition into the Stone Cold we know. We got the visual transition. He's got the haircut, he's got the goatee, the black trunks, the name, but the overall character of Stone Cold, that loner, don't trust anyone ass kicker Stone Cold, isn't quite there yet. Like you said, Joe, we are going to have to wait just a little bit longer to get that full transition. But once these two guys started in the ring, it started off pretty fast and hard, and it looked good. The way they were working with each other, I thought was very entertaining. And we got a quick update that Yoko did not break his leg last week. Even though they added a sound of a broken bone to the audio effect, he did not break it, though he did have some ligament damage. Apparently, the person who did suffer a broken bone, though, was Ahmed Johnson. He broke his thumb during that little encounter with the Bulldogs. So a little update on them. Then we go back to the match, and I think the thing that really stuck out to me in this match was how good Stone Cold looked on the outside of the ring. I think there was a good 3 times that he tossed Bart to the outside, and he immediately just starts attacking him. The first time he throws Bart out, he immediately starts with those recognizable Stone Cold stomps, those quick stomps up against the ring barrier. From there, he gets a nice clothesline. I just thought he did a really great job of using the outside of the ring in this match. Then, if, it happened quickly. If you weren't paying attention, you might have missed it, but Vince drops us a bit of a hint. We need to search for these ideas like it's a murder mystery about the tag team division, but he tells us that the Smoking Guns had to vacate the belts because Billy Gunn was injured. I mean, that's the first I know hearing of this, right? Did you guys?
Yeah, well, that's the first that they have informed us. Joe, I'm pretty sure, Joe, you've mentioned it in the news, but as far as the actual source, they've never told us.
Yeah, so apparently Billy was injured, and that's why the belts were vacated, and that's why we have this Fight Club style Don't Talk About It secret tag team tournament that went on. The King implies that he hurt his back on a Kids Quarter horseback rider machine, one of those ones you see in front of a grocery store.
He probably wrestled Ahmed Johnson.
That's probably what it is, a house show. From there, back to the match because it was fantastic. And then the end, I was shocked because they already said earlier in this match that Stone Cold's finish was the $1 Million Dream, but here it is. Stone Cold throws on the stunner. Vince calls it a devastating maneuver, but Stone Cold does not use it as his finish. It's merely the setup for the $1 Million submission win. I agree with both you guys. This was an amazing match, a great job out of Austin and Bart Gunn here. Put on an entertaining show.
Yeah, there's not much to add to this other than for anybody out there listening that really wants to see a prime example of Stone Cold Steve Austin and why he deserved to end up where he ended up. This is a fantastic example. That match that we reviewed a couple weeks ago with Savio Vega, with all of the merch and all of the promos and all of just the craziness that we get later on in the Attitude Era, it's really easy to forget where Stone Cold came from. And I'm really glad that we're watching these matches here back in the beginning of his WWF career, because it's great to just get a set of fresh eyes on them and to be reminded of how good he was. Joe, like you said, so fundamentally sound. Such a fundamentally sound wrestler. It's fantastic to watch. Moving along, we're going to get a brief JR voiceover, putting over the upcoming WWF Championship match at the In Your House pay-per-view. But then we come out of that to Jim Cornette and Vader in the ring with Vince McMahon. Cornette kicks this off by describing the destruction of Gorilla Monsoon at the hands of the man they call Vader. And then Yokozuna came next, and Cornette lays down some pure poetry on that whole situation. Meanwhile, Vader has just been posing and doing his thing in the camera's face this whole time. I was getting a kick out of that. But then we get the word that Vader is going to be taking on Razor Ramon. If we're going to keep it kayfabe here for a minute, where the fuck has Razor Ramon been? This is what I referenced at the top of our episode here. Just out of nowhere, we're pretending like it didn't happen. Throughout this entire promo, Cornette was absolutely on his game here. And then we move to a segment of Sunny videos. I don't know what the point of this was exactly. This was just all of the different exploits she's had while being barely dressed. So clips of Sunny in the bikini rollerblading down the sidewalk. Clips of Sunny playing pool in that red teddy. Clips of Sunny posing in the surf on the beach. This is all against an audio backdrop of a song that repeats, "I Know You Want Me," over and over again. Again, there was no point to this other than to show this video. And please, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was no setup for a story. There was no setup for anything. It was just there to be there.
No. It reminded me of like a scene from one of those late night Skinamax.
Yeah.
Softcore. Yeah.
Yeah, this was just completely blatant sex mongering. And it came out of nowhere. There was no, well, really, how do you transition to something like this? But out of nowhere. And it kept on going. It was quite lengthy.
They re-showed the same shots like 5 times.
Yeah, they recycled most of those. Once we're done with that video package, and it does end on a close-up of Sunny's ass skating away from us, that's where the show moves on.
Hey, listen, that's not just any ass.
I'm sorry.
It's award-winning.
Slammy award-winning buns.
Slammy award-winning buns. Yes, you're absolutely right. Well, you know what? That's where the show moves on, so we're just going to pause here so that I can ask you, Joe, what did you think about the Vader interview, but more importantly, the way that video package highlighted those award-winning buns? Yes.
Well, I'll save the buns for later. We'll talk about Vader first. You're right. We've been sort of repeating ourselves here, that the words, we're just going to pretend this never happened, with Razor just being gone from TV.
Unless it's Yoko going to fat camp, then we're going to underline that with a forklift.
And fucking humiliate him completely on TV. But yeah, I mean, Razor is going to have a match with Vader for no reason, and nobody cares why. Nobody cares to tell us why. You have Jim Cornette there. You have the opportunity to maybe explain something, maybe put some sort of storyline context to it, but they don't. The other thing is, Jim Cornette was talking about the Gorilla Monsoon encounter with Vader, but I'm wondering at this point in the show, what's going on with the president situation? Like, is Gorilla Monsoon totally back? I know that we saw him at the Iron Man match, but like, who knows? But we'll see him later in this episode.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
But, you know, I was wondering that as well. Now, as far as the Sunny video, this is our first glimpse at the I Know You Want Me, which was I guess that was sort of like her entrance music at one point, right? Mm-hmm. I think it was. So,
yeah.
This is our first glimpse at that song. This is a video that's just, I mean, like you said, it's basically sex mongering, but I think this was something that I feel like they've been trying to figure out what to do with her, because I mentioned in The Observer a few months ago, they were talking about maybe doing like an Anna Nicole story with her. So I feel like they got this real sexy young girl on the roster. So we're going to try to figure something out. So let's just show her in all these different bikinis and stuff. I mean, this is 96. So it seems mild now, but back then it was like, oh, holy shit, what's on my TV?
Yeah.
But it's also funny that now in 2021, you can go on OnlyFans and see this woman shoving things into every orifice in on her body.
Oh, my God.
Fresh out of prison.
Oh, my God.
Right between those Slammy Award winning buns.
Oh, man. So, starting with the Vader, Jim Cornette segment, I thought Cornette cut a really great promo here on Yoko and just kind of setting up all the stuff at the beginning here. The way you just had Vader screaming and flexing around and screaming Vader to the crowd. You know, I thought it worked really good, but definitely confused about the Razor Ramon match. They just kind of shoehorned in here. So that was probably the weak point, and just, it was very lazy storytelling here. There was zero setup, just, oh, Razor Ramon's going to take on Vader. But I thought the promo itself was done pretty well. Then on to this video. Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about it that you guys didn't say, but I mean, I will say 12-year-old me would have loved it.
Yeah, completely agreed on that one. I always did like Sonny. It's like you say, Joe, I'm trying to think of how this was probably received in 1996, because even though this is like the day and age, 1996, I mean, that's like the time of Baywatch. So one of the big things on TV is literally people running around in bathing suits.
Slow motion.
But this was, yeah, slow motion. But this was like out of nowhere and concentrated, like a fucking laser beam of horniness coming out the screen at us. It was.
I mean, yes and no, because we did get those beginnings of those few episodes of Raw with her in lingerie and
which some of these shots were from.
Right.
Yeah.
And saying she likes it raw, and so, I mean, yeah, it's out of nowhere, but not really. I mean, they've kind of been teasing it.
The odd thing about that, though, was the other segments that she did, it was, hey, here's a scantily clad woman to explain to you that everything you see here might not be for children. Where this was just a straight up, hey, she's not talking, she's not doing anything, here's some music and some ass and titty shots for 2 minutes. So it felt out of place. It was odd.
Yeah, but again, I mean, how exactly do you transition tastefully to something like this?
You can't.
All right, well, gentlemen, let's go now into our final match of the night. Savio Vega defeats Goldust with Marlena by pinfall to win the WWF Intercontinental Championship in 11 minutes and 25 seconds. That comes with an asterisk on it, which we will get to. Savio Vega is out first, and I really like his entrance. They've added light projections that look like fireworks exploding to go with his carumba music. I like it. I like where we're going with Savio here and the work he's been doing lately. And then it's Goldust's turn. Marlena looking amazing as always. We get a quick video recap of last week when the Ultimate Warrior dropped the gimmick to beat on Goldust. Back in the match, I love Goldust's behavior in the ring, stripping out of his robe to expose the Intercontinental title belt. Marlena helping him, of course, and I never fail to be entertained by the glitter filtering down through the air. Truly, almost literally, bringing the atmosphere of the arena to Goldust's world. Such a great touch for this entrance. Goldust licks the belt before surrendering it for the match. Fucking great. I loved it. Savio Vega and Goldust stand toe-to-toe at the start, And then I popped my ass off when Goldust starts sensually licking the air a fraction of an inch from the tip of Savio Vega's nose. And Savio doesn't flinch or back down. I fucking loved it. Savio answers with a nice fuck you gesture, the old fist in the air and the hand in the crook of the elbow, and the match begins. The tie-up ends with groping, as Goldust is wont to do, but Savio isn't falling for it. The second tie-up gets the work going, but as Savio proves to be a bit too much, Goldust runs out the entryway. After a couple minutes of Earl Hebner not counting, and only counting once Goldust is climbing back into the ring, and starting at 3, they get back in the ring and things pick right up where they left off. That sidewalk slam from Savio onto Goldust looked fantastic on both Savio and Goldust parts. Just an excellently worked piece of wrestling there. So did Savio's hard elbow to Goldust's sternum. I was kind of confused then as to why Savio slapped Goldust's ass the way he did, but it seems like that's maybe just part of Savio's strategy to show that he is strongly in control of the match. In control, that is, until Goldust does a great reversal, maneuvering Savio so that Savio falls face first into the top rope while Goldust escapes the corner. Something that's great about Goldust is that when it comes to the point in the match where everyone needs to take a breather, Goldust fills that time by being creepy. Most other guys don't have this kind of gimmick, and they're therefore forced to lock in a hold and sit there, and things have the potential to get boring. But whenever everybody needs to take a breather here, Goldust crawls around the ring and just milks the heat before applying the hold, therefore spending less time in the hold, but also giving himself and his opponent plenty of time to gather themselves before getting back to it. But in what was a really weird twist, Goldust asks for a microphone while Savio is still on the mat. Goldust keeps it short and sweet, threatening the crowd, saying that if they don't shut up, he's going to come out there and kiss every single one of them, which of course gets the crowd going even more. Once we pick the work back up again, Savio's rallying, but only briefly, as it's time to take a breather again. Savio's on his back while Goldust creeps it up, standing over him. And after some movement around the ring, we end up with Goldust climbing the corner to attempt a leaping attack, but Savio's able to get in and kick Goldust's leg out, causing Goldust to get crotched on the top turnbuckle. Savio then follows it up with a fantastic-looking standing sidekick, getting some great extension up to Goldust. This was a great spot that everyone pulled off perfectly, except Earl Hebner, of course. He just stood there staring instead of reacting at all. It was like nothing happened in front of him there. It did get a little hokey when Goldust reversed Savio's attack with a kiss, and unfortunately, the reversal to that was telegraphed as well. When both men get back to their feet, Savio rallies yet again with some quick spots. We then take a commercial break to pitch the call-in line, 1-900 Shameless. Pick option 6 while you're there to find out what the British Bulldog and Magic Johnson have in common. And my morbid sense of humor gave me a worst-case scenario with that one. We're not going to repeat it here. We get back to the match in time to see a 2 count, rope work, and then Earl Hebner getting taken out. That's right, the official is down here. The belt gets taken into the ring, supplied by Marlena for Goldust, but through a series of moves end up in the hands of Savio Vega. Savio uses the belt, drops Goldust, gets the pin, the 3 count, and the victory, but things aren't quite over yet. Savio Vega is declared the new Intercontinental Champion. But then here comes Gorilla Monsoon down the entryway. There are consultations in the ring, with the eventual news that Monsoon has decided to strip Goldust of the Intercontinental title, but also to not award it to Savio Vega. In what is possibly one of the weirdest and honestly dumbest calls made by authority figures so far, the Intercontinental title is officially vacated with a match scheduled next week on Monday Night Raw between Savio Vega and Goldust to decide the champion. Goldust and Savio are both understandably upset, and that's where this segment, but not our episode, ends. Ryan, please, what did you have on this match?
I'm going to start it out with something a little more lighthearted than the match. We begin with Vince and the King doing their USA copy, and yet again, Wrasslin Raw reaches into the past. Bartlett, you were just asking for Duckman, and here we go. Vince mentions Duckman. I immediately thought of you. You got your reference.
Yep.
I also agree with you, Bartlett, on the way Goldust entered, mainly once he got in the ring. The way he kind of postured himself in the corner while Marlena disrobed him was absolutely hilarious. Then he gets on all fours and licks the belt before he hands it over to the ref. That was all just golden. Then the match starts off with a lot of the, standard Goldust things we get. Him rubbing the chest of his opponent, him grinding his ass into the crotch of his opponent in the corner. A lot of just, kind of comedy spots, but they worked okay. And they were working really good with each other in the ring, I thought. I really liked Goldust's reversal. Bartlett, you mentioned it, but Savio had Goldust against the turnbuckle, and he went up on the ropes and was doing the 10 count punch thing in the corner, but he only got a couple punches into it, and Goldust just kind of bear hugs him, walks him out a few steps, and then just slams him face forward into the ropes. I thought that was a great reversal on the 10 count punch, and which I don't think I've ever seen. Most of the time, when someone starts that 10 count punch, they get to the end.
Yeah.
Then when Goldust grabbed the mic, that took me a little bit out of it. I wasn't sure if maybe he just was fed up with some of the comments he was hearing from the people in the crowd and decided to say, hey, if you guys don't shut up, I'll come out there and kiss you. But I thought it was pretty funny and like you said, was a good way to catch their breath here. That's where a lot of my excitement about this match ended. I loved the work that I saw here, but the way this ended absolutely ruined it for me. Savio hit Goldust with the belt. So when I see Gorilla Monsoon coming down, I'm like, okay, they're going to rectify this and we're going to give the belt back to Goldust. But no, the decision is to strip Goldust of the title, even though he was just cheated. Savio Vega clearly hit him with the belt. The president came down to make a decision, but his decision is not to disqualify Savio Vega, but to leave the belt vacant. I thought this is one of the dumbest endings I've seen in quite some time. I mean, this match was good enough, certainly, but the way it ended just made me hate it.
So I want to say first that I want to point out that Goldust had a match, so obviously we saw Marlena. So this was the first time that we've seen the big three on, or maybe we should call it the Biggins three on Raw, Sable, Sunny, and Marlena. So that was nice.
Nope, great call.
Goldust and Savio Vega, there were some things that I liked about this, but there were a lot of things I did not like about it. Goldust getting on all fours, licking the belt was fantastic. I love the cameraman zooming in on Goldust's ass every time he enters the ring, like they do with all the women.
Yeah.
I always get a kick out of that. I kind of wish all the sexual innuendo stuff probably should have stopped there. I think that there was a lot of spanking and biting and kissing and grinding and all kinds of shit in this match. It almost makes me wonder if this was in San Bernardino, right? In California. Correct. Still. So
yeah,
this crowd is almost like a Northeast crowd, like a New York, Philly type crowd. They're pretty active with we heard them chanting, "He's hardcore" for Mick Foley. Mm-hmm. It almost makes me wonder if Vince and Bruce Pritchard and whoever was like sort of judging this crowd and telling Dustin Runnels like, hey man, you're going to have to really ramp up the sexual stuff because this crowd's going to eat it up. I kind of wonder if maybe they were telling him that, because this was just like, it almost makes you wonder if he's more interested in taunting the crowd than he is just building heat and having a good match. So like a lot of that stuff, it was just like, I don't really care for it that much. The last few minutes of the match were really good. They had a pretty good hot ending there, but then the actual ending happened, and it's like, what the fuck? Just so confusing. It just like you guys pretty much recapped the whole thing.
Sense.
Just made no sense.
Yeah.
Why not just restart the match? Like, why have them wrestle next week? And, the other thing is, this could have been maybe a pretty good program between these two, but the fucking Warrior is going to be wrestling Goldust, so none of it even matters.
Yeah, that's an excellent point there. I did think of it while I was watching this, which is why I was kind of surprised at the way that it ended. You know, Goldust being re-awarded the belt after Monsoon comes down to the ring would have, helped perpetuate that whole Goldust Warrior thing. But now we get this, and, they're still going to perpetuate the whole Goldust Warrior thing, but this is just an extra step in between. It feels like we didn't really need. The same outcome could have been achieved if Savio would have just said, this is bullshit, I want a rematch. And then Monsoon says, okay, fine, you have a rematch next week on Raw. Boom, problem solved. We get the same result, more or less.
But the part that I just can't wrap my head around is there was an official down there that saw Savio hit Goldust with the belt. It's over, right? Goldust retains the belt.
Yeah, the whole situation is very straightforward.
There are rules written for this already.
Yeah, yep. The way that this gets handled just throws the rule book pretty much out the window. So, I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you, man. I was pretty put off by it myself, too. So, yeah, some weird shit going on with the Intercontinental Championship there. But hey, speaking of champions, let's take a look at someone now that isn't one anymore. That being Bret Hart. And after his Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels, the cameras followed Bret backstage. Bret was understandably pissed off, chasing the cameraman away and not wanting to answer questions. Bret didn't even shower or change his clothes. They have video footage here of him still a sweaty mess and in his tights as he tells us to fuck off for a while. He gets into his car and drives away. But now let's transition to the present on the banks of the Rhine River in Germany. Not the set of Lonesome Dove. I was quite surprised. Bret finally has something to say about it all. First up, he says, is that there were a lot of things wrong with that match. And he goes on to point out that he's not arguing the loss. What he is arguing is the changing of the rules at the last minute.
Seems to be a theme.
Yeah, right? This was a reference to the fact that a 60-minute match ended up being 62 minutes. Bret points out that when they rang the bell, Shawn was in no man's land, unable to break or escape or anything, and then continues to point out that it wasn't his job to beat Shawn so much as it was to keep the championship, which I suppose in this case is maybe a fine distinction, but it's still an accurate distinction in my opinion. The delay between the match ending and then the restart of the match is where Bret let his blood get too hot, and that's where he made his mistake. Then, in another just really weird spot, Bret almost reassures us that he would never go to work for a different wrestling organization, because that would be a step down, which, that's an arguable point, but just out of nowhere starts talking about going to the competition. He then clearly states, while other organizations are throwing money around, he's in it for the respect, not the money. And you're in the wrong fucking place, Bret, I'm sorry to say. He adds that he feels betrayed in his loss, and that every time he loses that title, he feels betrayal. God, what a fucking
just
rough, yeah. Just another nice jab at the WWF there, and another example of the best promos coming from a place of truth. And that's pretty much it as far as notable points in his promo, and we fade to black. Ryan, please, what did you think of Bret Hart's promo to end our episode of Raw?
I agreed with everything he said. I mean, it's exactly what I complained about at WrestleMania about his match. It was a great match to watch, but just like the Goldust situation we just had, there's confusion over rules that I thought were already set. He's complaining that he lasted the 60 minutes. It was tied, so he should still have the belt. That makes sense to me, especially since they took him out of a winning submission move, while the bell went off to end this match, only to allow it to continue and then him lose. So I completely agree with him. The way they made him lose doesn't make sense to me. But then when he starts talking about not working for any other organization and it's about the respect, and like, I just couldn't help but just put my head into my hands and almost cry, because it was just so sad to hear him saying this stuff, a year and some change before the screw job.
Yeah.
It was really shocking to hear this, knowing what the future is to bring.
Yeah, you could really perform an autopsy on this and really get deep. And this is planting the seeds of Bret Hart getting screwed, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Which happened when he comes back and he does his short heel run. That whole thing was based on him getting screwed over too. He was tired of getting screwed over, so he's cutting those promos in the ring, and the crowd turned against him. Yeah. So, man, it really makes me wonder about the screw job, and it almost makes you wonder, like, was it a work?
Yeah, that's the thing that it makes you think, because it seems like it was in the works already here.
I mean, he's already talking about possibly going to another wrestling company on
and being
TV.
Screwed.
On TV.
Yeah.
So it just makes you
being
wonder.
Disrespected.
Like, obviously, Vince had to give him the okay to say all this stuff, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
So and they have the power of editing this if they want to.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as far as what's happening right now, Bret makes good points about how he got screwed over in this match. But at the same time, I'm a little bit indifferent, because if Bret really is the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, he should have beat Shawn in sudden death. That's kind of how I feel about it now at this point. So hopefully he doesn't keep talking about this, because it just kind of makes him look like a whiny bitch at this point.
And how would you know the difference? Sorry, one of my main criticisms of Bret Hart is how much he appears to whine about a lot of different things. And he's kind of bitter a lot too. But if this promo is any indication, I guess he comes by it honestly, because I don't know. I couldn't help but feel bad for the guy in this. And
Well, I think that's mostly just knowing what we know about the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just whenever he says that line, every time he loses that damn title, and it's like, God damn it, Bret, you've lost it so many times.
But what Vince's words were that he lost the most precious thing to him other than his family. I loved that line.
Oh, yeah. That was kind of rough, too.
I mean, look, Vince was fucking dramatic about it. He introduced this whole thing very dramatic, and then Bret was very dramatic and whining. Yeah. So it was set up for him.
You're right. You're right. You are right. I'm a sucker for the sob stories sometimes. Sometimes. Well, as I said, that's the end of our episode, so we're going to take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Joe, please go first.
Well, similar to last week, I had Hunter Hearst Helmsley's performance as my highlight. I'm going to go with Stone Cold Steve Austin's performance as my highlight on this episode. And my lowlight is the ending / finish to the Savio Vega and Goldust match.
Yeah, Joe, we're going to follow each other pretty closely here. My highlight was just in general, the Stone Cold Bart Gunn match. I thought it was an all-around fun match to watch, and especially Stone Cold. He really stood out here. And the low light, the ending to the Goldust Savio Vega match. The match itself was perfectly fine, but the way that this ended and the way that they stripped Goldust of the belt, even though he was the one cheated, I really hated it.
Yeah, guys, we're going to go 3 for 3 on highlights and lowlights across the board here for all of the reasons that you guys just stated. But I do feel the need to point out that first match between Mark Marrow and Leif Cassidy is an honorable mention for lowlight because that was pretty goddamn bad.
It was.
All right, Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around April 15th, 1996 for us?
I do. Dave Meltzer has some comments about this specific episode of Raw that I wanted to point out to you guys. He notes that the Goldust Savio Vega match was good but not great. He said there were small children chanting derogatory words in the crowd as well as some of their mothers.
Oh, God.
They must have been cutting that out on the audio feed because I don't think I heard it, but I believe it.
Well, no, that's what I was kind of wondering, what caused Goldust to get on the mic and say that.
Yeah. Mark Marrow pinned Leif Cassidy in a so-so match. So I'm sure, Bartlett, I think you disagree with that comment.
Yeah.
So-so is being a little too kind.
Yeah, very generous of old Dave here.
Steve Austin pinned Bart Gunn in a dead match, and I have to think he's talking about the crowd.
Yeah.
Jim Cornette did an awesome interview, and he noted that Cornette buried Razor Ramon with inside references about him leaving, saying things like, "You made a horrible decision by signing a match with Vader," and so on.
Okay, so I was wondering that. And
Yeah.
So if Dave is kind of confirming it here, that's cool.
Yeah, and some other news here. WrestleMania 12 did essentially the same number of buys as WrestleMania 11.
Significantly better, though.
Yeah. Some significant news and rather tragic news. This was when Brian Pillman was thrown 40 feet out of his open-air military vehicle that he was driving. On April 15th, he was hospitalized in Cincinnati with multiple fractures and lacerations. His car ran off the road and struck a tree stump, then went across the roadway into a field where his vehicle overturned and he was thrown 40 feet from the vehicle. So that was not a good situation, but Brian did eventually return to wrestling, so.
And the military vehicle they're talking about, I believe, was one of the old school Hummers.
I think so.
Yeah.
And for him to be able to flip that is impressive. Those are not easy vehicles to flip.
Yeah. The next story here is Dave Meltzer is claiming that the Bret Hart situation is a weird situation because they are working the storyline around reality. There is a possibility in order to get him back to the WWF, they will have to give him the title back and work a lengthy program with Shawn Michaels with the belt bouncing around, which would be a compromise both sides would likely agree to. We'll find that to be very false. These guys aren't willing to put each other over at all. Razor Ramon and Diesel both finish up on May 19th. Dave Meltzer believes that after the pay-per-view, both will only work a short house show run. So we will soon say goodbye to those two. Vader broke his eardrum in the match versus Yokozuna last week, but he will be back for the pay-per-view.
So he was the one that actually got injured in that match.
Yeah, and such weird injuries with him. He had an eyeball pop out one time, his eardrum. Goldust injured his knee on April 13th. No word on how severe that was. Obviously, couldn't have been that severe, but well, I don't know. We'll see. This was taped, so his match probably occurred before that. I don't know. We'll see. Billy Gunn will return from a neck injury in mid-May. There are rumors that Mr. Perfect will be back wrestling, probably to feud with Shawn Michaels later in the year. Oh, what could have been.
Yeah,
right.
And last note here is that the first Shawn Michaels versus Vader matches will occur on house shows immediately following the pay-per-view. And we know how that's going to go at SummerSlam. So that is all.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. Thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Rawheads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on April 22nd, 1996, with matches featuring Fatu Yoshihiro Tajiri,
Oh.
and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.